This will give you a little overview, where have we come from and where do we think we're going. So the IC's objectives is to help maintain the standards and skills at a time when traditional skills were being lost. We have a long history, as it says there, we were formed in 1890, and now over a century later we're still committed to upholding the high standards of our historic craft. The membership is open to all craftspeople working in wood. Carpenters join us obviously, but it's wide-ranging, and other disciplines such as wheelwrights, furniture makers, boat builders, shop fitters, etc. We've got an open church, really to say if you're working in wood, actually at a high level, and you believe in doing it well, we'd like to be part of this organisation. Currently, along with our student members, we have now about 1,400 members. The student initiative has been something we've driven in the last couple of years, of actually recognising in the UK now there is a momentum towards apprenticeship training again, something that had been lost for the last 20 to 30 years, which I'll come on to in a minute. But what we've done recently is to say to students now that are studying woodworking skills, come into the IOC actually as a student member, be part of a professional body, and then when you've qualified you can decide if actually the IOC is something you'd like to be part of going forward. But while you're in those foundation years, start to feel you're part of something that's got some depth and that cares and can maybe help. At the IOC we now have 35, the FE stands for Further Education member colleges. These used to be described as technical colleges. In the UK, we sort of took our half this ball for quite a long time. The government politically were encouraging everybody to be going on a university route rather than necessarily a technical education. And now there's more momentum again coming back into the technical educational field, which is to be applauded. But in the UK, we certainly have had a rather disjointed approach, which I'll touch on a little bit more in a minute. So if I look at the qualifications, one of the complexities we have at the moment, because there is a rebirth going on now about revisiting the technical levels and what's appropriate, in this period of time when we've not had a real strong structure in place, we've gone through a process politically of what we call in English devolution. So in devolution it's meant in Scotland, in England, in Wales and in Northern Ireland, in our tiny islands, which really is quite a small space. We've now got the complexity that we have 4 regional areas with a degree of political self-government, and with the political process being as it is, each want to try to have their own slightly different variant on the same theme, which means at the moment we have some complexities that have got to be ironed out. I don't know how it is in other countries, whether in Germany, in Bavaria or in northern Germany it would be different, or whether it's a national view. In the past we had a national approach. We now have a more regional approach, still with the same objectives, to bring people through. And I'm not going to go into all the detail, just to say that in the background right now is something that, just to make you aware of, but I'll show you just briefly, the qualifications in England when we're leading towards apprenticeships. We have full-time and part-time college qualifications. It starts at a simple level and it goes up to what we call level 3. The qualifications can cover a range of on-site construction skills. There are certificates and diplomas, and we've now just recently started to introduce what's called T-level qualifications, technical level qualifications. There is a focus now on trying to present to young people that maybe a technical education leading to apprenticeships and training is one route to go, as against perhaps the more academic route to go, which maybe had been what's been fostered more in recent years. So there is a shift change, but this is a process of evolution at the moment. And with the apprenticeships in England, there are no absolute qualifications covered during the apprenticeships in England. But most trades that only have one level of apprenticeships with carpentry and joinery, and in level 2 and level 3, it leads to what's called an endpoint assessment. So the endpoint assessment then has 3 components: an online knowledge assessment, a practical assessment, and a professional discussion. But it needs to go further, and I think from what I see talking to professionals who qualified many years ago, these are the starting points, and the bar needs to be raised more as we get back into re-establishing the quality of technical education that's needed, so that people can actually win the applause. Also, as a master craftsman, which obviously here in Germany is something to be applauded, and it's something that's celebrated. And I think in the UK, we've got a lot of catching up to do again. But that just gives you the England situation. In Wales, again, remember, in the UK, for yourselves, I realise that this is quite parochial, looking at breaking up the UK into each of the countries. But in Wales there is a slightly different structure: full-time college qualifications, apprenticeship qualifications, and again leading to level 3 trade qualifications such as in carpentry. Obviously this presentation, I won't go into the micro detail, it will be something you can just all have after today, and just have a point of reference that there are these differences throughout the UK. In Northern Ireland, again, similarly, a variation on a theme. There are 6 or 7 really good, excellent technical colleges in Northern Ireland, actually, and I would say some of the best. And again, on a national basis, they have their own particular approach to this, and ultimately it needs to all match in with the total UK story. And lastly, in Scotland. So I just put these there to give you a flavour, because again, I wasn't really sure whether in other countries you have these sorts of variances, or whether you just have a straightforward national standard. And it may be something that I can bring back in time to the UK to try and help simplify some of this, because for the technical colleges themselves, this is a rather complicated evolution, but it is a movement now towards re-establishing quality education in woodworking skills, which I'm delighted with that. So I talked about student members, and I personally felt this is absolutely critical to revitalise what the IOC is all about, and what does it mean for a young person at school thinking, well, actually I want to learn with a trade in mind, I want to work with wood, I want to have a good education. And so I've tried to bring the history of the IOC through the technical colleges that we have as members, to then the students themselves. And through my own connections over many years being in the industry, I've been able to bring quite a lot of corporate organisations and trade associations into our network, which has really strengthened the depth of what we have. So a lot of the sort of organisations, 1 or 2 are mentioned there, organisations such as the American Hardwood Export Council, with the Timber Trade Federation, the Truss Raster Association, the British Woodworking Federation. There's a whole plethora of different trade organisations that I've tried to bring together, and I found a very open door, actually, that they would all like to play their part. And what we've been able to do is then for the student members say to that audience, there is more and more technical information, there is more connectivity with good organisations who are happy to share with you as students the knowledge and perhaps the publications or the information they have. So I've tried to bring that fresh start to the students, as well as some of the companies that are also in the tooling, manufacturing end of the business, to maybe also bring to students the opportunity to maybe purchase tools at a discounted rate and have some preferential incentives, so the students feel there's some support down the track, and one of those would be Axminster Tools that's mentioned there. We've organised visits to suppliers, bringing students out of the college environment to maybe some of the wholesalers in wood, just to open their eyes to actually the depth and scale of this industry, which I think for many people, until they are connected with it, have little knowledge actually of just how big and interesting and how many varied products are available. And I'm sure, as you all know, once you get connected with this industry, it does become rather a compelling story. and it just continues. And right now, if ever there was a time to be working in wood, I think now is a really good time, and for young people to be connected, it's an excellent time. So again, for that young audience, again, go back to our history, we go back to 1890. I have to be honest, things like social media and updating websites and all of this, 5 or 6 years ago, we were looking rather tired. And with a student audience now that need to be kept up to date and interested through modern methods, we've now got a nicely updated website. We're on Instagram, we're on Facebook, we have a Twitter feed, we've got a YouTube channel. We've tried to do all the things that other industries would do as quite normally, and I think we've got a nice platform that we can build on. In fact, I would welcome from any of you, all the time, we're just trying to add in, if there are short video clips or good high profile projects or nice stories or topical subjects, we now have a means to post that so that the younger generation can see these things, hopefully be quite inspired and impressed, and just sharing knowledge, which actually the social media and website platforms allow us to do. So that is actually an appeal I would put out to all of you. Think about that perhaps after today, and if from your various regional or national bases you think you've got something that's really compelling, please feel free to send that through to us, and we can see if we can include that and share it with that audience. Another thing we've done in the last, well, in fact this is the third year, again as the student population is growing, we thought it would be, as is quite typical really, to launch a third year student award. Now the reason for the third year being that typically in the UK, the third year means the student is coming through that level 1, 2 and 3, probably as the point, maybe an apprenticeship programme, but he will probably be at the end of a lot of his formal time at college. So we thought if we put a competition out there, getting our member colleges to nominate their best and outstanding Year 3 student, then we could have a judging process, we could then celebrate the winner and the highly commended students, and again raise that bar and acceptance of high quality. And I've been really pleased actually. It started in a small way with a pilot scheme in 2020. We got various industry people to help with the judging process. We've been able to play our part with national press relations, which has been helpful. Initially the prizes were provided just by 1 or 2 companies. That's now grown to 6 or 7. So we've got some really nice, generous prizes which can be, for a young person, really appreciated. And this has now been rolled out to all our member colleges with more prizes, more sponsors. And again, it's wonderful actually to see the young people celebrating their success, and actually the colleges themselves feeling, actually this was us. So, from starting again, these are the sort of things you probably typically have going on in your own countries or regions. For the IOC, this has been about trying to reimagine and reinvent some of the things that typically probably were in place many years ago. But this has been a really good initiative, and I'm really pleased that we have managed to get that going, and I see that continuing. In fact, we've had a beautiful prize carved by a master craftsman carver actually. There's a famous ship in London, in Greenwich. It's a beautiful wooden ship called the Cutty Sark. Now the Cutty Sark was a wonderful boat. It was one of the tea clippers in the days when it was a race to bring tea from India back to Europe, and the sailing ships that could win that race could bring tea to the UK and elsewhere and would get the best prices. The Cutty Sark is now a sort of national monument in Greenwich, and the master carver who actually made our IOC prize for students, he was commissioned to recarve and rebuild the figurehead on the front of the Cutty Sark, which had actually deteriorated and needed remodelling. And he's a wonderful craftsman, and he did that work, and that's now become our prize as the award outside of the sponsored prizes from companies. So that's a rather nice, unique item that we had for the first time last year. We do operate nationwide, and as a body, my vision is, we are a UK organisation. My passport says I come from the United Kingdom, of Great Britain and Northern Ireland. It's a UK body. I've talked about the evolved areas and qualifications, fine, but to my mind, don't let's make it complicated. I see as a UK organisation, we represent the country, and we develop industry links with lots of organisations. I mentioned the Timber Trade Federation, Timber Research and Development, British Woodworking Federation. The others there, these are acronyms. STA is the Structural Timber Association. Really, really valid and important these days with all of the developments of CLT, mass timber construction, glulam, all those products. The Structural Timber Association are really first class, being a good supporter. TDCA is the Timber Decking and Cladding Association. The NAS, they are the National Association of Shop Fitters, so all the interior fit outs. TRA, Truss Rafters Association, American Hardwoods, American Softwoods, Swedish Wood, and actually just literally this week we've also now got an affiliation and a partnership with the Federation of Master Builders. Now the Federation of Master Builders I think is really important because they again as a trade body, they are the small individual building companies throughout the UK. If you go back to school leavers, colleges, apprenticeships, the next logical link in that whole chain is the employment link. And actually, having now, and it will be closed out in the next couple of weeks, the Federation of Master Builders now also affiliating to us means that we will have an extended link to a lot of companies that potentially will also be looking for bright young people, well qualified to come into their organisations, and so I think we can be a conduit to be linking all these bits in the jigsaw together, so I hope that will work that way. I've mentioned one or two of the corporate members, accidents at Reiser, actually is a German company of fixtures and fittings. Medite Smartply is a manufacturer of OSB and MDF. I'm Hungry Direct, fixtures and fittings, tailor-made joinery, a quality joinery company, Pullman, Mercer, a Finnish company. So that list will continue. It's interesting now in the UK that as the momentum is building, companies are now saying, actually, we can play a part in this, and actually these young people are really quite interesting even commercially, because ultimately they also need to be linked to knowledge, brands, products, and we can share some of this. So there's an interesting evolution taking place now as more companies get connected. I mentioned we've had visits to timber and panel product distributors. We've also recently started what we're calling City Hub meetings, which is offering to the colleges the opportunity to bring quality guest speakers to perhaps do a morning session or an afternoon session on a theme of their choice or a mixed theme, of bringing industry experience to talk to the students as one module of their training, and this has been good. We've done about 14 of these so far, and this has gone really well. The career pathways, as I said, is something we want to discuss and work more with something called Talent View, which is actually a platform run by the Construction Industries Training Board, which is trying to put online job opportunities for people in all sectors of the construction industry, including carpentry and joinery. We're linked to that. And what I'm trying to do through all of this work is bring a lifelong connection to the IOC for particularly the younger generations, so they feel part of something with a value and a future, and thinking, well actually this is something now I want to be a part of going forward. I think we've probably got the challenge that we need to look ourselves in the mirror and say what is actually the value going forward so that people feel this is actually really good to be part of it. I think there's a mentoring role that I believe we can develop more with senior experienced people bringing their experience to the colleges and young people. I think we need to try to do that really well. Maybe some of that would be online, maybe some of that would be remote, maybe some of that would be in colleges themselves. But I think the mentoring, experience part is important. I also think it's really important that with this evolution of mass timber and the sort of trend towards new methods of construction, that actually we need to help the colleges who have been poorly funded and poorly resourced in recent years. We need to help them link more to companies in that field so they can start to teach those elements better. And it may be that some partnerships can be fostered between some of the colleges in your countries or your regions, that maybe we can get some exchanges or some links where there is this knowledge that exists. How can we maybe start to share this? How can we maybe add some value? But I think that's where a European broad overview has been really beneficial, and it could go both ways. But that's something I sort of think might come out of all of this. I think just in closing, and thank you for the time you've given me, I met a Canadian recently who works for the Canadian Wood Council in Vancouver, and he's also probably as passionate about this industry as probably you all are as well. And he actually came up with a lovely quote, which I'm going to read to you, which I think just made me smile. Because he said, of course, you know, all the politicians and everyone's talking about what we must do with the carbon economy, what we must do with sustainability, what we must do with save the world and everything else. And his name is Peter Moonen, and he said, well, maybe this is a new product for everyone to think about. He said, perhaps a self-replicating, solar-powered, carbon dioxide sucking machine that stores energy and carbon in a building material, well, maybe that might be of interest. Well, actually, in Canada, we've got billions of them. We actually call them trees, and the world needs more of them. So I thought that was actually quite nice, that actually, you know, to cut through all the rhetoric and all the political speak, that actually the business we're in, if ever there's a time of the resources we work with, the carbon capture, renewability, modern methods of construction, all the things we talk about, I thought I'd just share that with you in conclusion. So I think it's quite a nice one to use when appropriate. So look, thank you for your time. I hope that's given you a flavour of what we're trying to do. Thank you very much.